Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to askNK. This is our weekly rundown of events, updates, and beautiful stuff happening within the Blender community, Blender Foundation, and also Blender as an app. And this week we have some interesting news, some pretty cool updates, and also some community stuff that you guys would want to take a look at. First off, if you go over to blender.org site, you will notice that we have a nice Blender news that deals with Blender by the numbers. So we've already talked about this one last year where we got to see the 2019 Blender by the numbers. This year, we're seeing Blender by the numbers for 2020. It's pretty incredible to see that there's a massive increase of 35% from what we got in 2019. And this makes the unique visitors to the blender.org page 23 million users. So there is 23 point something million users, and this actually makes it almost 2 something million persons accessing the Blender website every single month, and that is a whole lot. And once you go in to match 2019 versus 2020 on a monthly basis, you would also notice that there is a huge traffic for 2020. And I do think that the pandemic actually came in very handy in some sort of sense for Blender, because lots of people actually jumped ship from several tools and also decided to just start using Blender, and that must have also caused this huge traffic that we get to see here. And for those who would like to also take a look at the pages that got visited more, you can see that download page for sure was one of the most visited pages. Then we have the thank you page that actually comes after you download this, and then the home page. You can also tell and see where the traffic is coming from, as most of the traffic is coming from the United States, India, UK, Germany, Russia, Brazil, Japan, China, and so on. So you can tell from this graph where this traffic is coming from, which is definitely going to be very useful for those that are into open and close quote marketing. There is also something that is very useful for those that would be developing add-ons and those who will be doing some sort of marketing for Blender stuff, and that deals with the download. You can also tell who is using Blender more, as we get to see that Windows users have 11.7 million downloads for Blender within 2020, and the Mac users are actually running behind with 1.4 million. And then we get to see Linux and those who like to download the source code. And for those who like to take a look at more of these things, you want to see how the release get to work, how many persons download, from where they did download, and maybe you want to do a bit of comparison. You want to see the development fund, code contributors, all those things. I'm going to put a link in the description so you can do well to check it out. And while we talk about things you might want to check out, last week we talked about something. We did say that there was a node workshop. Within the time we made that conversation and we talked about it, it was still more like a hush-hush thing and there was no developers blog about it. But today we have this beautiful one. So the node workshop is done, there is a developers blog about it, and now there are certain things that you guys need to know. So this node workshop itself was targeted to improve things like curve, volumes, design a system that can pass attributes more directly, and also for materials. Now there's also certain things that have been talked about which will be coming pretty soon. Now these things are topics that was covered, and hopefully we will be seeing these in subsequent updates of 3.0. Now the ones that they did discuss is targeted towards making these things solid for 3.0, but these ones which we're going to talk about right now are more like things that we might be seeing coming soon. Simulation solvers are one. We get to see that there is also something that deals with geometry checkpoint. We'll probably do a demo about that soon. There is also the attribute sockets, particle node, and also physics prototype. So all in all, we'll get in something that deals with simulation, and to me I think this makes a lot of sense. So for the simulation side of things, the simulation solvers will be integrated directly within the geometry node pipeline, and this would work in some very interesting way. The one of them is that a solver node will point to a separate data block at certain times, and the same data block can be used in a different geometry node tree, and this way multiple geometries can be solved together, each interacting with other elements and at the same time with the solver. So you can choose to just get some sort of parallel solving, or you can simply go through the multi route. So this is pretty nice. There's also conversations about how these things can be layered and how you can actually interact with it. Right now the colliders and also force field will simply be defined within the object level, and this is to allow any object outside the geometry node system to be influenced by multiple solvers. So in this case, if you have two rigid body, you can edit them within your viewport or within your attribute editor, and you can connect the node to cloth, and the cloth can be connected to fluid, and it can go on and on and on. Now this makes a lot of sense because this now brings us to something known as the geometry checkpoint, and to me I think this one is nice. It's nice because we don't have anything like this right now in Blender. So for any time there is a simple checkpoint, it's going to be like a placeholder node, and this actually makes the geometry that you've created already up until that point to be baked, and you can actually actually edit this within your scene or within your viewport. And to illustrate that, if we simplify our Blender 3.0 right now and go over to geometry node, we know that if you choose to do something like a point distribute, and you connect the point distribute right here, and then you choose to bring in a point instance, and we add up a simple point instance right over here. Let's actually create something as simple as Susan. So if we create a point instance here and we simply run this through, this is what we get. At this point, you cannot edit this. So if we press tab on the keyboard, the only thing which we can edit is this simple geometry that exists within this part. Actually, let's just go ahead and hide this and see. Let's select that and press M on the keyboard. You would notice that the only geometry we can edit is this. So for you to have full control or simply edit this, what you need to do is you need to jump out of the edit node, select this object and click right here and simply apply. Now this is how you can actually manipulate the geometries you've created up until this point. So what the geometry checkpoint would actually help you do is, instead of applying this node, you can get a geometry checkpoint and edit this node, and it's more like, you know, having this applied, but at the same time you can go back. I don't know if that makes sense. So you can now, you know, edit this without applying that node, and that is what the geometry checkpoint is supposed to offer. Now this is a little bit different from what you have in Houdini, and the way they're looking at this is for things like simulations, things like hair and so on. You can go out, you know, you can put a simple geometry checkpoint at any point in time, go in there, make some changes, and in cases of a live simulation or a baked cache, you can interchange these things and get up to speed with them. Now if you take a look at what we have in Blender versus what we have in Houdini, they are totally different. So right here in Houdini, I did set the scene up before. I'll actually go through and explain it to you guys. If you press the playback button, this is what you get. All right, so if we go all the way back and jump directly into the geometry node and go all the way up, you know, we did start with something like this, and with the polywire created, we went ahead to make a simple remesh. So I'm just gonna go in and take a look at this so you guys can see. So what the checkpoint is supposed to do, which is actually something you can do by default in Houdini, is at any point a checkpoint is placed. Although in Houdini at any point you can do whatever sort of checkpoint you want to do, but what the folks at Blender Foundation are looking at is at any point you have that checkpoint, you can now go into the viewport and edit a certain part. So we can say we're just cutting this part out, press the delete key and create a blast. All right, and then I'm just going to delete this blast so that we can redo that. So once you have this, you can go in, select the object, select this, delete that, and now you can proceed. Now once you proceed to do some simple scatter, you copy things to point, and maybe you simply create a VDB and you smooth that VDB and you convert that VDB, and now you have something like this. This way you will be able to create stuff the way you want. So this is actually one of those things that the folks at Blender Foundation are looking at doing, which doesn't completely exist right now. Now if you take a look at what we have here in Houdini versus what we have in Blender, you sort of get the idea of what they're going for. So for Houdini, this one is just quite seamless, and it's something that you can get out of the bag. And what they're looking at is they would like this thing to also exist, not just within, you know, simple stuff, but at the same time when you're trying to create some sort of simulation. So at any point in time, if we go over to the blast one more time, so at any point in time we have a simple blast like this. If we choose to actually bypass this blast, so let's go ahead and bypass it and go all the way down, we should also be able to have ourselves some very cool animation or simulation going on. So what you're doing will not be intercepted at any point, as once you put in that checkpoint, you can make your edit, get your simulation working, go back, redo what you want, and continue. So up until this time, this particular idea was more like a suggested idea. As you can see right here, that it says that the overall concept was briefly presented and still needs to be explored further and formally approved. So this would work both with things like your VDBs, your Alembics, and for those who are already working with Houdini and trying to work with Blender as well, this is definitely going to be a joy to have. Now the same thing goes for things like the attribute socket, as this is also some of the other things that will be coming. There is also the particle node, and I kind of think that all of these things tie together. So for those who would like to, you know, read more about this, you want to get a whole idea about how this is going to work, you want to see what would happen when, and the different kinds of nodes that we'll be getting with the particle nodes, as right now we're having only 3 that deals with events, conditions, and actions. You may want to check this one out. There's also some other conversations that deals with proposals for attribute sockets and geometry nodes 2.0. You might want to come through and read this one out yourself. There's also this for the field and also anonymous attributes that you should be able to create. And for those who like to wrangle, I think for some reason we'll be having some very cool wranglers that will be making their way to Blender. And with that said, if you also want to take a look at the particle workshop that was done sometime last year, you might also want to come through and read up on this one so you can have like a full idea. All of these links, I'm going to put them in the description so you can do well to check it out. Now, with all these beautiful things said, let's take a look at one new cool feature that I'm kind of proud to say that it is now here in Blender. I did talk about this one long time ago, but it's pretty cool to see that we have it. So what we have here is simple. Let's say you have a simple geometry like this and you jump right in to create a geometry node, and for some reason you would like to make this a curve. So let's say mesh to curve, and we'll convert this mesh to curve. Remember previously how we get to convert a curve back to a mesh, which is a curve to mesh. How we used to convert this before was, you had to import an object info, create something within your viewport, and then connect that to this. This is no more, as right now if you go over to your geometry nodes and you go over to the add section, there is now a curve primitive section. So within this curve primitive section, you can now add as much curve types as you want, and you can use this to drive your curves and do some very interesting things. So in this case, we can say we'd like to get a curve circle and click that and drop that right there and simply wire this all the way to this point. So once you do that, you can play with the resolution, you can play with the radius, and of course you can go in and confirm some changes and see how the tweaks actually work. So at this point you can do a whole lot of things. So this just simply makes a lot of sense. For those who are into things like this, you might definitely find this one very rewarding and also very useful. Moving forward, there is also some very nice stuff that has happened within the community that I think you guys need to know. So we did talk about the fact that there is a huge need for persons to develop and also donate to the Blender Foundation, and right here we get to see that today we have a beautiful animation studio that have joined the Blender Development Fund as corporate members. And the studio which we're looking at today is the Wizard Animation. Very cool guys based in Moscow, and they've actually joined the Blender Development Fund as one of their corporate members. So for those who would like to take a look at Wizard, maybe you want to see some of the things that they're working on, this company has actually created one beautiful animation that is actually streaming on Netflix right now, and you may want to go in and check it out. Now, if you also want to take a look at the animation stuff which is coming on very soon, you might want to see it. Now, I do not know if this company really works with Blender or if they're just simply supporting it, as right here you would notice that they said that the Wizard Animation will introduce a new in-house 3D editor called the Wizard DCC platform. Now, what this DCC platform will do is you can do basically everything that includes lighting, rendering, procedural modeling, and so much more. So I have no idea if this company is just being very nice to the folks at Blender Foundation or if they really use Blender to do their work. So for anyone who would like to come through and check them out, link to this is also going to be in the description so you can do well to check it out. And with that said, let's talk about some community stuff that you guys would like to grab. So this week we do have some very nice community stuff, and a huge shout out to the community for sending these ones in. Right here we have the spread object, and this add-on is made available by an amazing creator known as Abdubwan. So Abdubwan has created these things before, and it makes a lot of sense to come through and look at them. So for those who are into spreading stuff, you may want to come through and check this one out. If you're also looking for more free stuff, he also has a couple of free stuff within his page which you might want to check out. And I also think he has a page on Blender Market, just in case you guys would like to check that out as well. I might probably put a link in the description so you can see that. So if you're looking for things like animated tornado, you're looking for procedural snow, or maybe you're just looking for some very, nice free stuff, you may want to check these and grab them for yourself. And when we talk about things you may want to grab and check for yourself, there is the black mesh, and Mift has actually made this one possible. So we do know that Mift did create something like this earlier, and Mift has actually made this one possible. Right now, this add-on is supported for Linux, and the Mac version is coming soon. So for those who are into creating hard surface meshes, you may want to come through and check it out. And while we talk about those who are interested in creating hard surface meshes, this week I came across this. interface called Run Tools. Now, Run Tools and P-Cutter is more like a Swiss Army knife for those who are into hard surface modeling. Now, I did check this one out. I will probably do a full video about it. And this comes with a whole lot of things. So for those who like to come through and look at this, maybe you're looking at ways for lighting setup, you're looking for some curve tools, you like to create some wires, you like to simulate stuff, and probably you're looking for, you know, that complex modeling set of tools that you might want to work with, and you're looking for something that has even more features to it. This just comes with a whole lot of utility. So if you're thinking about these things and you're thinking about a tool that can get you up to speed with them, I would strongly suggest that you come through and check this one out. Check out the documentation, read up on these things, and know what you will be getting at the end of the day. So for those who are into anime, you're looking for action anime speed lines, there is a Blender shader right here that is for free, and Camobyte has made this one available, so you can actually come through and grab it. And while we talk about things that you would be able to grab for free as well, there's this awesome add-on that I don't know how many people will need it, but for sure if you're into editing with Blender, you might want to come through and grab it. Now, this is a shot or a scene dictator which actually splits your scene based off individual shots. Now, this add-on is making this one available, and you can come on GitHub and grab it for free. So this is more like it for those who like to come through and take a look at the wizard, or maybe for those who like to read more on the nodes, or you want to read more on Blender by the numbers, or maybe you would like to get a hard surface tool which you can work with. Links to this is going to be in the description, so you can go through and check them out. Tell me what you guys think about this one in the comment section, and of course if you like this video or you learned something from this, you can go ahead and give a like, and don't forget to share with a friend. And if you're new here, it's going to be amazing for you to hit the subscribe button and also turn on the notification so that you don't miss next video or the next update. And I see you guys again with a tutorial update, Free Friday, Tutorial Tuesday, tips and tricks, things like this. Peace.